Hey guys, thank you for being patient with me as I took some extra time to film this because, as I mentioned in the message I sent you all last night, I needed a little more time to process because I've been really tuning into your messages that you've been leaving, both in the Spell of Astronomical Abundance group and in the Master Mindset group. For those of you who don't know the Master Mindset group, they're also doing the 11-day detox, not the whole spell, but the 11-day detox. And I've just been blown away by your messages, by your experiences in both groups, by your support of each other, by your ability to hold space for each other. I've just been amazed, and I feel like my job's easier because you guys have been so just, like, your gifts are just on point right now, and I feel like everyone's showing up and offering that space and also really holding the vibrational bar pretty high when it comes to staying connected to the objective, which is clearing out, which is becoming aware of and clearing out old programs that are seeped in lack so that we can really welcome in and receive our manifestations, and really the specific manifestation of our resonance, our personal resonance or algorithm of abundance, of heaven on earth. And really what the heaven on earth vibration is your perfect match to your existence. Being able, and this requires, this ability to really fine-tune your resonance requires you not only to feel, but also to have preferences and to make decisions. That's what makes you a creator, because you can tune your direction in a certain way. You get to make a choice about how when you listen to how you feel, what you do about that information. And this goes right into what we've been talking about with the solar plexus and the throat chakra, our ability to access our will, our personal will, which is fueled by our zest for life and our sexuality, and speak it into existence with our throat chakra. And something I don't think I mentioned in the email that I sent out about this is that the emotion that blocks the solar plexus is shame. And the thing that blocks the throat chakra is lies, and particularly the lies we tell ourselves. We did touch on this not being authentic. That's what blocks the throat chakra. It keeps the energy literally stagnant in the body, because this physical body is like a tool that's transmuting all the time, and it's taking in electrical pulses and outputting electrical impulses, and it's calling things to us, and it's emitting energy out. So our only job is to make sure this body is really aligned. That's our only job. We are stewards over this body, which is an aspect of our Trinity. And it's important that we include the physical body in our decision making. And part of the lack programming on the planet, this self-sabotage, has not included the body. It's this idea that the body is bad, or the flesh is bad, or that we're supposed to transcend the body. But actually we're supposed to inhabit the body. It's our temple, and prepare the body and allow this our higher self, our spirit, to be more and more and more and more present in the body. And what that translates to is more and more and more connection with the physical, and more love, more and more sensuality, more and more pleasure. And you can even hear, like, when we say those words, I know you can feel the word pleasure or desire, or what's the word I'm looking for? Indulging in any way has a lot of negative connotations in our programming, because we've had this deeply embedded belief that humans are bad, that we're bad, and that we need to be punished. And that we're not worthy to receive. So the important thing to really understand, I think one of the most important things to understand about the throat chakra and the solar plexus and their synergy together, is that this is our ability to tell the universe, to feel what our will is and then speak it into existence, to really have preferences. And if we're operating under a belief that we can't meet our needs, or that it's bad to meet our needs, like we're not allowed to have preferences, we're not allowed to have desires, we're not allowed to have an opinion, which is what a lot of us took in when we were younger, then we end up really feeling disempowered. And the problem with that is your entire being is set on not only surviving, but also pleasure. We are creatures of desire. We naturally move towards what feels good and away from what doesn't feel good. And if we're not listening to our own signals, then what happens is we have a very strong shadow that we will attempt to get those needs met, but what will happen is it will go unconscious. We can't be aware that we're trying to get those needs met because we have an active program that we're bad. And so we have to keep it in the shadows. We have to do things in secret. And that's where the darkness gets really dark. That's where things can get really twisted and sick, and then guilt and shame come in even more. Guilt is the energy that blocks the sacral chakra, which we'll get into tomorrow. And fear blocks the root chakra, so our groundedness to the earth. And so this entire fear of what we are, which is creators, which are pleasure-seeking beings, that fear causes us to actually, when we reject that part of us, it causes us to actually become very disconnected from that aspect of us. So it acts apart from our conscious awareness. And I really think the core of this is why we have child molesters, why we have just all sorts of ways that people try to get their needs met in really dark ways, because there's something about meeting our needs and being creatures of desire that we feel shame about. And again, shame is that energy that blocks the solar plexus. But the truth is, anything we bring into the light, if we're just honest to ourselves about what our desires are and we don't make them bad and we meet them in ways that feel good and in ways that involve the win-win-win, we can meet up there. It's all about being creative. And part of the lack matrix is this idea that there's only this way and this way. You either do this or you do that. You only have this option or this option. This or that is part of the lack matrix, because that's actually not true. There is an infinite amount of possibilities and an infinite amount of ways. And any invention, any innovation that has ever happened on the planet has happened because someone thinks outside that black and white thinking, beyond the limitations that people put themselves in. And so whenever we find ourselves in this or that sort of thinking, we have to ask ourselves, how can I be more creative? How can I get my needs met and the people around me feel their needs met, and we all together feel happy? We all together feel like we are... the more that we meet our needs, the more everyone's needs are met. It's called the win-win-win. And that is a reality that we can live in. We just don't know it because we've been in lack and we've been limited in our perspective of what's possible. So the thing I really wanted to touch on is that I believe that this synergy, when we don't connect to our will and speak it out, this to me is the energy that causes codependent relationships. So to me, the synergy between the throat chakra and the solar plexus, when we can't access and accurately reflect our authenticity through what we're saying, what we're agreeing to, because we agree to things with our words. And often when we're trained out of alignment, trained to ignore our true preferences, what happens is we say things we don't mean, and we make agreements verbally with things that we actually don't authentically want to agree to. And this can cause a lot of issues, but one of the primary things that I believe is caused through this is codependent relationships. And the reason that is because when we don't feel like we have the power to meet our needs, we can't speak our needs, we can't say our preferences, then what we naturally move towards or are gravitating to are people who will fill that space for us, that we can feel powerful around, people that feel powerful, people that feel like they can meet their needs no problem, they can say what they feel no problem. Often it's narcissists, people who are naturally inclined to blame everyone else for how they feel and not take responsibility for how they feel and strongly emote that. And often we're drawn to that when we have a weak solar plexus and a weak throat chakra, because it makes us feel stronger to be around someone who can say how they feel. And the subtle part of this dynamic is that when we can't speak our true feelings, it's usually especially because we believe that we're not allowed to. We believe it's not nice to say how we feel. We ultimately feel responsible for other people's emotions. So we feel like they can't handle this, or we know how it feels to feel rejected or to feel whatever. And so we don't want to make anyone feel like we're rejecting them by saying no. And so we say yes when we don't really want to say yes. And the problem with this, it is not a virtue to do this. It is, I think, a virtue to care about people and to understand that, oh, they might feel rejected if I say no. And we can hold space for that and remind them, that it's not about them in little ways or in big ways, just letting them know, I love you, but this is what I prefer. And preferences are okay. I'm allowed to have a preference. I mean, I don't mean you have to say that out loud, but we need to know inside. It's okay to have a preference. It's totally okay. And so when we do not allow ourselves to have a preference and we make ourselves feel responsible for other people's emotions, and then we try to rescue them from how they might feel by suppressing our own truth, we cause a very toxic dynamic. Because what happens when we do that is that people don't get to see the true us. We're misleading them about who we actually are. And often what that does is build up within us this feeling of resentment, because we feel overly responsible for other people's emotions and feelings. And when we feel overly responsible for people's emotions and feelings, we're basically sending the message out, I don't trust that you can handle your feelings, or it's not okay for you to feel any other emotion other than happiness. We're perpetuating that lie, when actually the healthy way to deal with relationships is the same way that I'm talking about dealing with our own emotions, that all emotions are okay, and we can work through however we feel. Some emotions are harder to work through than others, but ultimately every emotion is neutral in its meaning. We're the one giving it meaning. And so if you say no to someone, if they ask you to go do something and you say no just simply because you don't want to, you don't have to give an excuse as to why you don't want to do it. But if you're in touch with your inner truth, and your inner truth, it just authentically doesn't want to go, and you know that you're allowed to have a preference and it's okay, and it doesn't mean you don't like that person. Maybe it does mean you don't like that person, but whatever it is, you're allowed to have that preference. And when you allow it and you have the energy within you, like, no, everything's okay, I'm allowed to have a preference and all is well, it feels much more to the person you're saying no to like everything's okay. But if you say no and give a lot of excuses as to why you're saying no, and energetically give off the resonance that I shouldn't be saying no, but I am, and I'm so sorry for saying no, but I just don't want to, or whatever it is, we're causing them, we're projecting the energy out that we should be sorry for having a preference. Do you see how that works? And so it's really important that we allow ourselves to have preferences and allow it to be okay, and practice. This is something that I've been practicing a lot, is practice being okay if people feel uncomfortable, being okay with disappointing people. So one of the things that came up for me when I was doing the exercise is that with my mom, it was always about being nice. My mom put a big emphasis on being nice. And then even after she died, my sister Jenny, who kind of took her place in my mind in a lot of ways, her thing was always like, well, don't hurt their feelings. Well, don't, make sure you're nice to them. Or she always put that out, like it's rude to do that. So, or if I would say no to go do something, she'd call me and lecture me about it. Like, you should come. Everyone's expecting you to come, and almost make me feel like there was something wrong with me if I didn't want to do something. And so I felt all this resistance and guilt for saying no. And she doesn't do it anymore because we've worked through this together, but she got it from my mom, because the message we essentially got when we were kids is that being nice and being respectful should override your truth. So if your truth is going to hurt someone, or your truth is going to make anyone uncomfortable, or your preference is not part of the group preference, then you have to suppress it, or you just don't say it. You have to ignore it. And what that did is train us all into having codependent relationships. And all of us have struggled with it. Pretty much all of my siblings have struggled on some way, shape, or form with codependent relationships. And we also had an alcoholic father. So the combination together was just programming that was truly out of alignment with thriving. And so it's something that I've really practiced. And we've seen, I don't have kids, but my siblings have kids, and with their kids, they're totally different. They're learning, they have preferences, and sometimes it shocks us how honest they are. But it's actually the most refreshing thing, because there's no question of whether they love you or not, but they're just 100% honest about what they feel. They've sort of transcended the thing that we've struggled with. And a perfect example of this is my sister Jenny, the one that I was just talking about. She, a few months ago, was over at a friend's house with her daughter, and her friend's daughter and her daughter are the same age. And they were about to leave, and her friend asked my sister's daughter, she's like, you can stay if you want. Abby, which is her daughter, Abby doesn't have anything to do, and you guys could hang out if you want. I can take you home later. And she's like, do you want to stay? And my niece Olivia was like, no, I don't want to, because she authentically didn't want to. And my sister Jenny told me this story because we had been talking about this tendency so much to ignore our needs. And she said that when they got in the car, Jenny told me this story, and she said when Olivia said no, I was kind of mortified because I felt like it was rude. And so when they got in the car, my sister Jenny goes, Olivia, that was kind of rude. And my niece Olivia was like, what? And she was like, Abby looked kind of hurt that you didn't want to stay. And Olivia was like, well, I wasn't saying it to hurt her feelings. Heidi asked if I wanted to, and I authentically don't. I'm tired, and I kind of just want to go home and lay in bed and watch a movie. And Jenny's like, I know, well, but the thing is that you could have just been nice. You could have just said yes anyway, basically. And Olivia was like, Mom, so you're saying to me right now that you would rather have me lie and do something I don't want to do than tell the truth, even if it makes someone uncomfortable. And Jenny said she just kind of sat there and was like, wow, no, that's not what I want you to do. And it just really hit her how messed up that programming is. And Olivia wasn't rude when she said no, she was just authentic. She didn't want to stay. And if her friend Abby feelings are hurt about it, she needs to learn how to work through disappointment. We all need to learn how to work through our emotions. But when we all feel responsible for each other's emotions, we don't mature. We don't become emotionally mature because and also when we constantly make people feel like we're responsible for their emotions, they believe it. Kind of like I was saying with the narcissist empath dynamic. You'll naturally attract a narcissist who believes that other people are responsible for how they feel when you at a core level feel responsible for how other people feel. And a narcissist will make you feel responsible for everything. And if you already have that belief, it can be a total mindfuck. And so it's important to understand this dynamic on so many levels. And all that to say, the most important thing to get out of this part of the cleanse, which is our solar plexus and our throat chakra and that relationship, is that we need to get as comfortable as we can speaking our authentic truth without apology. And we can do that with respect. We can say no in love, and we can still be respectful to people. But being nice is not a virtue. And that is one of the things I think it's important to cleanse from our body, is that being respectful is really powerful, and it's a way that we can let people know, like, I respect you enough to know that you're a full-grown adult, or you're a human being, and you're powerful enough to deal with your emotions. And I respect myself enough to respect my preferences. I do not have to put my preferences aside because they conflict with yours. And remember, if we are in a mind frame where it's either my preferences or their preferences, one or the other, then we're not thinking creatively enough, because it doesn't have to be one or another. It's okay. How is it the win-win-win? And sometimes it's not, we don't have to work out how it's the win-win-win with everyone. I think the most important thing is that we're being respectful. But it gets a little deeper and more complicated when you're dealing with your spouse or your best friends or your siblings, your close-knit people. And we'll continue to go into that as we go through this cleanse. But the most important thing to take away from this is that when we are out of alignment with our truth, it causes us to have very toxic, codependent relationships. When we get into alignment with our preferences and are able to speak them out and be respectful and truthful to ourselves, respect ourselves first and foremost, the world around us respects us. The world around us starts respecting our preferences. Because remember, when you speak, it's like you're putting an order into the universe. Your words have a resonance. And it's more about the energy behind the word than it is about the word. Because I could say, like my sisters and I sometimes say negative things to each other, but we have like our own secret meaning that it's love. Like my sister and I will get hysterical when like she'll call me and she's just super honest with me and I'll tell her she's a bitch and then we just laugh hysterically. You know what I mean? Like, so she knows that when I call her a bitch, I'm not actually meaning she's a bitch. I'm saying I love you. And that might be kind of twisted, but we just have our own way of talking to each other. But if I were to really energetically be angry and call someone a bitch, that has a different resonance with it. Do you know what I'm saying? And so it's not about the words you say, it's about the intention and the energy behind them. And that resonance and that intention will call in a matching resonance. And so we have to make sure we are speaking in a way that's actually authentic to our true emotions and our true feelings and our true preferences, because we're putting our order in with the universe. We're saying, this is what I believe, this is what I want reflected back to me. And so it's just really important to get comfortable with this dynamic and to get comfortable letting people feel uncomfortable, letting people feel their emotions and respecting them, like, oh, hey, giving them the same opportunity you're giving yourself in this cleanse, which is to feel. Because feeling will make their heart come alive. But if you hurry and try to take it, no, let me take that feeling from you because I don't want you to feel it, because I don't think you can handle it, or because I'm afraid it'll hurt you too much or whatever. You're giving them the message that A, emotions are wrong or bad, B, they can't handle their emotions, and C, that you're responsible for them, which is codependent. The last thing I want to say is the opposite of codependency is interdependency, because the truth of the matter is we are relational to our core. Think about a baby. When we're born into this world, we are 100% dependent on others, on the adults around us to survive. And we grow and expand through relationships and through other people meeting our needs. And so it's not about not allowing anyone to meet your needs, because that's a whole other thing, which we'll talk about when we get to the sacral chakra and the third eye, when we're afraid to connect and afraid to let people in and afraid to receive because of guilt or fear or shame. But we are meant to fully feel. We are meant to fully receive. There's others who are meant to come into your life and meet needs or reflect things back to you that you can't necessarily access yourself. But in and of yourself, you are fueled from the heart, from the source within you. And when you listen to this, when you tune in and move naturally towards what your inner guidance is telling you is feels better and what feels worse, and moving towards what, and when I say what feels better, I'm talking about for the whole Trinity, not sacrificing, I'll ignore my mind and I'll just go with my emotions, or I'll ignore my body and what my body's telling me and just go with my mind. You don't have to sacrifice anything. I'm talking about listening to what your whole Trinity is saying. The whole you, because when you move towards what feels good, you're moving towards what is ultimately fulfilling for your whole Trinity. And that's the interdependency. When you include all yourself, you are something that's invaluable to the planet. You meet others people's needs simply by being you and by fully being in alignment with your truth. And we do everyone on the planet a disservice when we ignore our preferences. So what I want you to do, I'm going to do the next meditation, the next time I give you a meditation, because this video is a little longer than I wanted it to. I don't want to bombard you with too much info, but I want you to do the meditation on your own for this particular synergy, the throat chakra and the solar plexus. Go back into the garden, and I want you to just allow those programs that you've identified to come out, kind of like we did with the previous meditation, and form it into something that is a symbol to you. And I want you to speak whatever your new intentions are for your preferences, like speak your preferences to your flower or to your plant that's growing. Like allow something to symbolize your preferences, and then speak out loud to your flower or to your plant. You're encoding it with your words, what your true preferences are, how you truly feel. Because remember, plants are medicine. Food is medicine. What the earth gives us is what we're asking for. It's what our body's telling it needs. And it's by what we've planted. And so we have to remember that as we nurture it and as we have a relationship with this plant that we've planted in this garden, we are giving it information about what we need, and it's going to reflect it back to us. And so you can do that in any way you want. Let the meditation take you however you want it to go, but just make sure in the meditation that you are tuning into your solar plexus and your throat chakra and connecting with your will and speaking it out loud authentically. And it can be your will in relationship to anything in your life, but mostly I think in relationship to yourself and to your Trinity. So in the next section where we talk about the sacral chakra and the third eye, I will have a meditation for that, and I'll kind of include the throat chakra. I'll include all the chakras we've connected with this far. So hopefully you're doing well. For those of you in the Spell of Astronomical Abundance group, we're going to be focusing this next round with the chakra cleanse a lot more on the spell itself. So the 11-day detox was really just to get us very aware of the programs that block our manifestation. And then as we move into the chakra cleanse, which as I talked about, it's more like a chakra programming, we're going to be intentionally fine-tuning each chakra to line up multidimensionally with our perfect astral network, our perfect team that strengthens us, our tribe, the tribe vibe essentially. So I'm excited to be able to move forward. So I just wanted to remind you of the direction we're going, which is ultimately the spell of astronomical abundance. You are inviting heaven on earth into your life. So, all right, much love. I would love to hear your experiences or questions or whatever for the group. For those of you in the Spell of Astronomical Abundance group, we will do the first live on Saturday, the Saturday when the group is over. So right now I don't have my calendar with me, but I put it in our in the intro email. But it's going to be at 11:11 a.m. on the Saturday after the class is over. And please show up if you can. If you don't think you're going to be able to be live, you can message me any questions you have privately, and I will try to address them in the group. So in the live. So all right, I love you guys. Hope you're doing well. Can't wait to see what this next level unfolds for us.